Um, I thought an interesting thing is that Jake and Andy, would you agree that alcohol and drug abuse is prevalent in college campuses?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And that's something that we should address. Well, I thought it'd be a good idea to have two new staff members, Zach and Taylor, a new social media manager, and Taylor's going to do an underground music report. Ask you guys some questions about what they see at their college environment at Hofstra University. I think that would be an interesting back and forth. So, Zach, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I've noticed a lot at Hofstra. I'm actually from California originally, and what I've seen is the painkillers and the heroin epidemic is a lot more severe over here. In California, it's actually more of a problem with methamphetamine. And around Hofstra, actually 2 years ago, a girl was overdosed in one of the dorm rooms, and her boyfriend, who she had overdosed with, who gave her the heroin, actually left her there and placed an anonymous phone call 48 hours later, and was just tried and found guilty of manslaughter for that. And I had never even thought of how bad and how highly infected the community was until then. But when I saw that, I started to think more about it. And then all of a sudden I started seeing people around. I live in the Hempstead area right next to Hofstra, and I started realizing that there was people just being around campus that were on heroin, clearly strung out. And I never really thought of how the community was so affected by that until I got here and realized that a lot of people silently sort of have those problems, even in college, even kids that you wouldn't expect. Really rich kids that are coming to school in nice cars are going home and shooting up in their basement, and it's affecting their lives and not allowing them to live up to their own potential, and it really just hurts them, it hurts their parents, it hurts their friends, and it's something that really needs to be addressed. And especially in college, it's kind of sort of swept under the rug. At Hofstra too, they want to keep their reputation pristine. They don't want to really talk about those issues. So they sort of kind of sweep it under the rug, like how they were talking about how the NFL does with abuse. So with that being said, there really needs to be more discussion about it, and there needs to be more outlet for students to be able to talk about it.
Andy, Jake, I'll have you guys address what Jake said.
Well, I think that, the part of your really insightful and reflective comments was, is the question of why is this happening? And, why is it happening here? Why is it happening now? And I'm not going to pretend to know what the answer is or that there is a single answer, but, we can only speculate. But there was a time where heroin was widely used in inner city areas in the New York metropolitan area. And there was a certain degree of prejudice in the sense that as long as it's in those areas with those people and it's contained, then it's not so much of an issue. So the attention that it's getting right now is a result of it having become a problem for a different population in the suburbs, including, many of the wealthy folks, that you talked about. So there was a taboo at that time. So when people knew about it, when I was younger and it was going on, there was a kind of a taboo. You knew this is what happens over there. It doesn't happen out here, and it's something that we stay away from. I think history wiped that memory out of the next whatever it was, the next few generations' consciousness. And then as people experimented with things, and they found also that with heroin as an example, whereas, injection was the primary mode of delivery way back then, now there were forms where it could be snorted. And so snorting, didn't have as much stigma as shooting up. And then if the gateway is breaking up the pills that they find in the family medicine cabinet, whether it's oxys or Vicodins, and breaking them up and snorting them. It's like a logical step. And then when they discovered that heroin is cheaper than prescription pills, if you can get a fix for $5 rather than whatever they might pay for the painkillers, it became easy. But who knew when they tried it that it would have such a grip on them, and that it would be something that they couldn't escape, and something that they had to have because the cravings were so great. And so, and as far as the families sort of, not taking it as seriously, it's because people are devastated, they're ashamed, they're unsure about what to do. They don't want to expose this to other people in their lives, to know that, where was I a failure as a parent? Why is my child involved in this? When none of that is actually the case. This is an addiction, and so now we're in the middle of it at this point. And the other thing I would say is, when you think about the dramatic increase in overdoses, literally over a 15-year period of time, and I'm not making a direct correlation, but I think it's something worth considering, that this was the 15th anniversary of 9/11. And, using these drugs, these are painkillers. That's what opioids are. People want to kill the pain in their lives. So with that dramatic experience that many kids went through in elementary school, middle school, high school, and then grew up with that, that's something that we haven't yet fully come to understand. And in addition to that, the lives of many young people right now from suburban families are different than what it was for a generation before. The idea of my life is going to be better than my parents', or as a parent, my kids are going to have a better life. That may be true for some, but that landscape has changed pretty dramatically. So you have to always consider what's happening in the environment. What are the contextual variables that impact on a person's life? And then you have to get into what's happening, within the person themselves, and what kind of access and marketing is there in this sort of this world that we live in which the big drug companies spend billions and billions of dollars, for advertising. If you look on TV, every time that you're on, there's some kind of a drug that they're pushing, that they're advertising. And the amount of money that this industry is spending on pushing better living through chemistry doesn't even compare to the paltry amount that's used for prevention, education, and treatment.
Excellent.
Yeah. What I would say is, if you look at the college age, in terms of the development of the brain, our brains aren't fully developed until we're 26, and that means that a lot of your, decision making when you're from the ages of 18 to 21, 22, is significantly less than most of the population. And I do think a lot of kids, when they're in college, they do see themselves in pristine physical condition, and it's a stage where everyone's kind of in the moment, and they don't see themselves what could happen past the now. And I think when you're able to fully develop your own decision making, you could see this action will lead to this, will lead to this, will lead to that. When you do choose to get involved in painkillers or heroin and stuff like that, I think a lot of kids say, oh, it's not going to affect me. I'm in college and stuff like that, but they don't recognize the neurological implications of doing drugs or alcohol. But I do think a way to assist this is to understand that this transitional phase of high school to college is something that really needs to be addressed on college campuses. I mean, kids, many times, you understand there's chemical or biological reasons that make kids, college students, more susceptible to drug use. But I do think a lot of it has to do with the fact that people, college students just don't feel comfortable in their own skin, and they're trying to feel comfortable at parties with themselves, and they experience this euphoric sensation of being okay with themselves or their own situations. And what I always try to work with my clients is to understand that you have the resources inside of you, feeling good about yourself, feeling empowered. It's all a process of development, and I really feel that through early therapy could really work on many of the reasons as to why they are going to these substances, and to understand the impact that treatment can have.